Welcome to the Tradies in Business podcast with your hosts Warwick Bidwell and Nicole Cox. Divert your phone and grab a brew as Waz and Nic unpack tips, tales, secrets and stuff-ups from guests both inside and outside your trade, helping educate and inspire you to break the cycle of gut-busting and money stress and create a true trade business.
G'day, g'day. It is a day today.
It ends in Y.
How are you, listeners? What's happening in Tradies in Business land? Waz and Nic coming at you. Another episode. Cool episode today, Coxie.
Oh, I am so pumped for this episode. I just know how much value there is in this, not only for our listeners today. I think there's a lot of value in today's episode for our guest.
Yes. It's interesting. We have a few of our clients and members and just trade business owners on the show, and it's I don't know if it's amazing, Coxie, but it's heartwarming actually. The number of them that go away from the show with a positive experience. You know, it's like sharing their story is somehow therapeutic.
Extremely so.
Yes. So we do have a beautiful guest on today in Amii Jones from TouchWood Trees or TouchWood Tree Services.
TouchWood Tree Services.
Tree Services. Yeah. I should get the name right.
You should really.
But Amii and Brendon are long-term members and clients. Amy's an avid listener of the podcast. So they are drawing board members. But Amii... Well, we kind of volunteered her to come on the show.
Well, yeah, with a great big hook, and we kind of just dropped it in her lap yesterday. And
by the way, we've booked you in for a recording.
Yeah. Well, you did say I could do it at some time, so it's done, Amii, and it's all over.
So hopefully she listens to this. But fantastic story. Like these guys really do epitomise the journey of so many of our tradies in business that hardworking families, small business owners, they don't know what they don't know. And it's so fantastic to see what they've achieved and especially see how Amii as the tradie wife has really stepped up and stepped out, and yet still has so much doubt about herself. And it was really great to hear her share some of her insights and knowledge bombs. And I wrote half a page of notes as she was speaking today. So I know you're going to get heaps out of this episode, whether you're a husband or a wife, it doesn't really matter. I think there's some fantastic learnings in here and it's just a fantastic story. And you'll hear some of the big goals that they've achieved, which certainly makes Coxie and I feel all warm and fuzzy here at Tradies in Business.
Might bring along the tears sometimes, but they're happy tears. I like happy tears.
I did get a bit misty-eyed at the end, Coxie.
Same. It's very sweet.
Anyway, I'm going to go blow my nose and dry the leaky face and let you enjoy this episode with Amii from TouchWood Tree Services.
Enjoy.
Righto. So we are joined today by Amii Jones from TouchWood Trees, and we've got Coxie here.
Hello. How are we all this fine day? I really want to say it's Tuesday, but you might be listening on a Friday or a Thursday or a Monday.
It's a day, and it ends in Y, and Amii does not end in Y.
No.
We have a lot of Amiis in our community. Amii, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. We're very excited to have you, Amii.
My wife's name is Amii, so this is not going to get weird at all. If I start asking you if you've ironed my shirts or something, you know what's going on.
The answer's no. I haven't ironed anything.
Don't worry. Warwick's Amii wouldn't have ironed his shirts either.
Oh, fun fact. Do you know that my wife, Amii, actually spontaneously chose to iron my shirts recently?
Was she cranky? Or was she trying to get some frustration out with that thing?
She was worried that she wasn't going to do it good enough because I'm very particular. I was like, honey, if you're going to iron my shirts, I'm hardly going to complain about it.
I'm going to be honest, I would never touch your iron or iron your shirts. No way. I'm sure it wouldn't be good enough. Even if I used my military precision, I'm pretty sure that I would manage to be wrong. That
Now,
actually
I
sounded
reckon
terrible now that I say that.
I reckon we should move on from the shirt ironing,
Yes, let's.
Amy. But it's an interesting Chucky Norris segue here on the Tradies in Business podcast.
There's always one.
And it's around the roles that wives play. And I know we have a number of conversations in our groups, and Amy, I'm pretty sure we've chatted with you about it on and off through groups and board meetings and all sorts of stuff. But just the role of the tradie wife and how tricky that can be. What's your position title at TouchWood Trees?
At the moment, it's business manager.
Yes.
Yeah. So it never really was anything before that, though. I was just, I don't know, we started our business together. It's not my husband's business, it's our business. But at the same time, I never gave myself credit anywhere. I was just the one that did the stuff in the background. So that's changing.
Yes, it is changing, and vastly and very quickly, actually. It's going on warp speed, I would say. But I want to probably delve into that a little bit. It is really common. I was the same, even though the builder and I started our business together. It was still his in my head. It's not the way he saw it, but in my head, it was very much his. And I discredited my knowledge or my skill set that I could bring to the table. And I didn't, I guess, get involved in the beginning like I had plenty of opportunity to do. I just chose not to because I very much saw it as his, and I was just the support rather than actually being a business owner.
Yes.
And I remember some of the early conversations that we had with you where I feel like you were thinking very much the same. Would that be a fair statement?
Definitely. Like I said, I've always said it's our business, but I never felt like it was. Like I was always the support role, I think, to Brendon. So yeah, it is definitely how I felt.
When did that change, Amy?
Probably when I started working with you guys.
That's an excellent answer.
We like that answer.
Now, hang on. Was that a good thing that it changed?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, it has added more workload to me, but
I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
But not sorry. So what can you talk our listeners through, I guess, that change? Like what brought that about, and how has that actually benefited you guys in your marriage and also in your business?
Yeah, that's like it's benefited us like in our marriage more so than I thought that it would. Yeah, like I found I always sort of sat back because I didn't want to step on his toes or overtake like us women can sometimes do. So I sort of went the opposite and did nothing so that I didn't feel like I was encroaching on his ground.
Yep.
Yeah, so then once I started working with you guys, we sort of swung that around a little bit, and we had more open conversations about the fact that he actually did need help, because boys don't admit that.
No, they don't. I think that's an excellent point that you raised. Not only do they not admit it, sometimes they don't actually even know how to articulate the fact that they're feeling overwhelmed and they could do with some help.
Exactly, and that's what I found. Like Brendon never asked for help because that, you know, it was his job to provide.
Yes.
And, you know, he just kept plugging on doing his job. I had no idea how stressed he was with everything that he needed to do. And all I was worried about was not stepping on his toes. So once I did sort of step up and start taking over a few little things, I noticed a change in him. And so then I started taking over more. And then, as you know, once we had that conversation with you guys about handing me his phone, and I didn't think that he would ever do that because, you know, it's his phone and he's the business sort of thing. But he just did it. He just went, yep, okay, here it is. And we've never looked back.
I'm so damn excited to have you on the show today, because I think that the most important thing that I want, particularly women, but men to hear, maybe our male listeners will pass it on to their partners who are sort of sitting in the business on the fringe and they would like them to get more involved. This is a great episode for you to hear how you can get more involved and the benefits, as we've spoken about just briefly. But the most exciting thing for me initially was the change I saw in your confidence levels to make some of these decisions around how you could get involved. But actually, the real flip side to that was the change in Brendon has been enormous, to the point of handing over his phone. And this was very early on in our journey. I'm sure you were only working with us for about 4, maybe 6 months at that point, to be able to give it. The phones are such a crux for the male tradie business owners to be able to hand that over, trusting that you know what you're doing, trusting that you've built the systems to cope with the calls that come, and to relieve him of that stress has just been remarkable, that he was able to let go of that control because you stepped up to the plate and were able to put the systems in place to ensure that you could capture everything that needed to be captured.
Yes, and yeah, we did. We just did. I think when we signed up to the drawing board, I sort of had this in my head that we're going to try scary things, and this year was going to be a year of doing things differently. And what was the worst that could happen? It didn't work, and we had to go back. So I had never done the phones before because I don't know his trade. So, you know, I'm just a stay-at-home mum, as I've always put it. But I found just putting those scripts in place, people want to talk to somebody. They don't care whether I can answer them on the spot. They want to talk to a person, not get an answering machine. So I can have that quick conversation with them, get all the details we need, and then Brendon can call them back with the answers later. So, and then not to mention the stress that he's not listening to his phone ring all day and can't answer it because he's busy, or, you know, that stress as well. So
yeah, let's not forget he's up the top of a tree. And my goodness, I watch your social media. Those trees are very tall and very scary. And the last thing you'd want to be doing is listening to the phone ring and not concentrating on the job at hand, because you know there's all that pressure down there waiting for you when you get down the tree. That's incredibly stressful. A big change for both of you.
Yes. And yeah, and he has changed. He's sort of accepted it, and yeah, we're both running with it now, and he's loving it, to tell you the truth.
So what, how's that opened things up in the business? I mean, it's a bit of a leading question, but making that change, like what else have you seen flow on from that, Amii?
I think because we've worked on our sales process this year with you guys too, I think it's like a mixture of both of them together. It's not one on its own. But yeah, we did the sales process. So I think it's opened up. Brendon can talk to me now about things as well. So we sort of have more the process in place now, rather than just, I think I had something to tell you today. It's, you know, everything's there, and it has given Brendon the opportunity to be able to, I understand a bit more now, I think, so he can talk to me about what's going on in the business.
It's like breaking the seal, you know. It's you get that one change, and then that's like, oh, well, we can do this. Have you noticed at all that Brendon's actually being proactive about handing anything over? You know, I know you've sort of said, well, I'm taking the phone, and he went, yep, okay. But is there things where he's, I guess, looking at it more and perhaps delegating to you, or, you know, starting to proactively shift things?
Yeah, definitely. I think he's seen that I can cope with the stuff now. And yet he does. He will just straight away go, can you do this? Or can you do that? Or this person called me, can you get back to them? And yeah, he's more than happy to hand it over now.
It's amazing the way one small change can make the whole communication better. And I know from my own experience that did ebb and flow, I have to be very honest. My ability to effectively communicate and the builder's ability to effectively communicate. But it did open up that communication in a totally new way that actually really positively affected our relationship as well. And even our parenting, our ability to parent, because it's kind of like you're unlocking the key to being able to ask for what you need, explain the way you're feeling, talk about an issue pragmatically instead of emotionally. All of that stuff starts to shift once we learn how to take that first step and say, you know what, I'm not actually coping, or you know what, I really need some support here. Do you find that unlocking that key with Brendon has meant that you guys are talking more freely in your marriage as a couple and as parents with your children? Is that really starting to open up all of those areas as well?
Oh, totally. And I think that's where I've enjoyed the biggest change, is that Brendon is a typical man who doesn't talk about anything because, they're men. But yeah, he does talk now. We both communicate better with each other. We don't have as many like yelling matches because we can actually have a conversation. So now when I say to him, that something needs to be done or this has gone wrong, he's not looking at it as me attacking him anymore. And I don't know if I've changed the way I'm speaking to him or he's changed the way he's hearing what I'm saying. But either way, I think they've both changed a little bit. And so now it doesn't end up in it's all my fault and you're blaming me. It is, okay, well, there's a problem. How do we fix it? So it has totally changed the way we communicate, and we've had far less fights. I mean, not that we fought a lot, but, it was more when you did say something about the business, it was like it was a personal attack, and we've taken that out now, and it's no longer a personal attack. It's just, this is what it is, and we need to come to a solution. So, yeah,
I think that's
definitely
a big thing for a lot of guys, as Coxie does a happy dance in her studio there. I think it's a big thing for a lot of guys is they try so damn hard to do it right, and then to be questioned on it, it's almost like they feel like they just can't do enough, and they're already at capacity. And despite the fact that, most wives are just trying to help, they want to support their men, and we have had them on the show. We hear from them as clients and members, and it's like we get as outsiders what wives are trying to do, but there's some weird, disconnect between the two, as you've said, Amii, where it's perceived by the guy usually as a personal slight, a personal attack. So it's interesting, and I wish we could put our finger on what changes. Like you said, you're not sure if Brendon's listening differently, receiving the message differently, or if you're sending it differently. I'd probably run a theory up the flagpole and say it's a bit of both.
definitely
because of the clarity around the business relationship versus the personal relationship. And it's a question I want to ask you about that is, how does the business personal life run now in terms of that segregation between the two compared to previously?
It still meshes too much because there's no defined sort of work and personal. I don't know that there ever will be when you run a business as a husband and wife. But I think we work with it a little bit better, and I think he sees what I do now as different. Not that he ever thought that I didn't do anything, but I think now, like, he's actually changed the way he talks, and he'll say, "Oh, what did you do today? Did you work?" Whereas there would never have been the work in there before. So I think he can see what I do now is work. So, I generally sort of do a bit of work in the afternoons and like around bedtime and stuff with the kids. And he sort of is happy to step in now while he can sort of see that that's my work time. Whereas his work time is when he's on the job. Sometimes my work time is he needs to step in and take over with the kids. And
that's cool.
We're still definitely working on the downtime from work, but because I have the phone now, there is times where it won't get answered through dinner time, and I'll put it on silent and I'll bring them back if it's something that is more important at the time.
I think women tend to do a better job of that than men. Sorry, I'm going to really come in with the heavy stereotypical conversation, very sexist also today. But I feel like particularly tradie men, they're people pleasers. They're very much in their businesses to fix problems and to make sure people are happy, and whatever's going on is right or fixed or unbroken.
Mm.
And so I feel like then that culminates into a lot of pressure to answer the phone during dinner time or on a Sunday afternoon or during time with the kids where you've all promised that we weren't going to touch the phone. I feel that's a real challenge for the males generally, but women seem to be able to create that priority, create that time and that space where necessary. So it's a great benefit for your family in terms of handing the phone over. And one I'm sure nobody thought about when we're poking you all to give the phone over to Amii. I'm sure that it was never considered for a minute that the benefit there might actually be that family time can be more family orientated. It is actually just about the people in the room. You can be present there rather than worrying about the phone calls that are coming in. Is Brendon going to answer it? You know, that dread when the phone actually rings, that chime. So, they're just some small changes can have massive impacts on the rest of our lives. And I actually feel I'd really like to talk about your sales process and how much work you've done on that. And the small changes, it's a big sales process. It's very robust. You've worked very, very hard on it. But it's been the small changes as you've gone on that have made the biggest change as you've worked through that. Do you want to talk us through some of those changes that you've made to your process?
Yeah, so the sales process, when you guys first mentioned that back at the start, it was the last thing I thought that I was going to be working on when I signed up. Like, the big stuff. That's what your head's telling you, that business is about the big stuff. And when we started with the sales process, I'm like, oh, okay. It has been the biggest change we've made, but it's been a slow change made up of small changes along the way. So it's taken us 6 months to implement the new one. But I think it's worked because I did it one email at a time.
Yes.
I didn't just go, all right, here's the new sales process and we have to just implement this entire thing now. We just changed one thing and we added that extra email at the beginning. And then once I got that okay, then I added the next one. And then slowly, like I said, it felt like it took me forever to get there. But now that we're there and that we've done it in the small steps, it has made probably the biggest difference overall. Like, we're getting so many people comment on our sales process and how much they've loved our communication. Like, and we get people email us. Like, as you know, we got somebody knock back a quote and then sent me an email giving me positive feedback. That quote genuinely came down to cost and they couldn't afford to pay the extra, but they're still recommending us to other people based on our sales process.
Might be time to look at getting Afterpay or something, Amii, so you can pick up those people without the cash.
I have considered that.
That can be in your next board meeting goals.
Yes.
So how have you kept I guess, maybe moving away a little from the relationship stuff and giving up the phone and that clarity in the roles, but I just wanted to pick up on that whole thread of doing little bits and little things, one email at a time, just adding those little bits. I mean, you had no sales process before, and now when you look at it, you guys have got like this flagship that we unashamedly trot out to other members as an example of what they should be aspiring to. How do you manage that thought process of, this isn't going to do anything? I'm sending an email out to people. How's this going to change anything? Did you have those thoughts, and how did you actually deal with that as you've gone along?
Honestly, I think I knew that it would make a difference. Like, I really did believe that it would make a difference. It was just that it was never important enough, I think, because we get so caught up in the day-to-day, returning this phone call and doing that we didn't put away the time to do the things that were actually important. They just weren't urgent. So, like I said, I do believe that it was important at the start.
I think that's a great point you make. We get so busy being busy and doing the things, we forget about the stuff that needs to be done to ensure that it's done well. And I know myself, even my own business experience, working in pharmacy was very different because you transition into the role of managing the pharmacy or managing the pharmacy group or the section or whatever it might be. So there's a clearly defined path to follow. It's all there for you. It's like following the bouncing ball. when we go into businesses for ourselves, if we don't have that business training, and not many of us do, there are no bouncing balls to follow. So we don't really know what to do. And we think, okay, well, it's not really important to have a sales process. The phone's ringing. I've got clients. I'm making money. I don't need to worry about it. But we don't think, I guess, about what we're potentially losing by not having these things in place. And most business owners get to a point where they're ready to have some growth within their business, whether that means growth in terms of profitability or growth in terms of actually growing the business to a larger size with a team. Either way, that's fine, but we need to have thought about those things that we deem to be maybe important but not urgent or less important at all. They need to be in place for that, to facilitate that growth. And so something as simple as the sales process, you haven't just worked on your sales process, actually then dovetailed into some other areas that you needed to work on, like getting the phone handed over so that Brendon could be more productive in what he's doing, or understanding your roles and what you want the business to look like moving forward. There's a lot more. We start sometimes with what we think are small basic tasks, but they actually lead into lots of other small changes that make a huge swell of difference at the end. Can you think of, within the sales process, like I just referenced with the telephone, are there other areas that sort of tipped into change, even in the way you're thinking about moving forward on some of the stuff you'd like to change up the business with your systems?
I was just thinking about something and I've totally lost.
Well, you guys are working really hard at the moment on changing the qualifications that we have for Brendon, and you also worked really hard on your training model for your apprentice and what that's going to look like now that you have some of this awareness around technology that's come through doing the sales process, etc. So I feel like that's changed a lot for you.
Yes. Our training, like all of that kind of, like every step of the way, it opened up so many rabbit holes of, I could do this, I could do that, automating emails. Like our training, getting the procedures in place to train our staff and then ultimately run the business eventually with all the little mini procedures to run the day-to-day running of the business. I've still lost the other stuff.
It's been a big week.
There has been so many positive changes. Like there really has.
How have you guys managed the distraction? Just speaking of being distracted about things, but guys are really good at butterflies. Does Brendon do that? Is he like, I got this idea, or let's do this? Because I know there's some really cool video stuff happening when we first started working with you. Has there been a shift in the way you approach what you work on? I mean, do you sit down and talk about it in a planned, structured way now versus just kind of doing stuff before, or is it still largely the same? Like, what's happening for you guys now?
Well, I'm the queen of distraction. Notice. But yeah, before it was almost like, we could do this or we could do that, but it never eventuated into anything. Whereas now we can sit there and throw out some ideas, but then put them in writing and actually go, rightio, well, this one here, let's work on that one next. And that's what we've, like with our sales process, we worked on the sales process and we got that sort of done. And then once we got to the end of that, we're like, rightio, now what should we go with next? And then we started with the procedures. But we do sort of sit there. We still get distracted and we can flip between things because sometimes things come up that are actually more important than what we were working on. So we're still sort of flexible in that sense that, life can throw you lemons sometimes and you've just got to roll with it. But yeah, we do tend to sort of focus on one thing now and getting that. And once we've sort of gotten to the end of that, then we'll start on the next thing.
I want to pick up on life throwing you lemons because, yes, life's thrown you a few lemons this year, but it's also thrown you a big-ass juicy peach. Do you want to tell us about your big-ass juicy peach?
Yeah. So last year, I said to Brendon, we're going to buy our house. And he's like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, no, we're going to work at this and we are going to buy a house and this is how we're going to do it. And we bought our first home last week.
Yay.
So we're waiting to move in. But yes, we made it and we bought our first home. So
incredibly exciting time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to do it self-employed, it's just made it that much sweeter. Like, you know, we've done it the hard way, and being self-employed makes everything harder when it comes to finance and all that. And we're completely self-employed and managed to buy our first home.
Leads me into, sorry, Warwick, where that's really going for me. And that is about goals, right? Making goals and then working towards your goals. It's a lot of what we do here at Tradies in Business. How has structuring, working towards your goals changed up what you're able to achieve?
Again, I think it started with the small stuff, you know, like changing the sales process, like putting that little goal in place of let's just do this, or moving Brendon from a paper diary to a calendar, which he dug his heels in for 12 months beforehand until one day he went, yeah, okay, I'll just do it. And then setting those little goals and achieving them was like, oh, that we did that. Let's set a bigger one. And let's set a bigger one. And, you know, it was to pay off the machinery. So we paid off all our machinery this year and saved the house deposit. So it made that big goal that little bit easier because we'd smashed the little goals and realize that it is doable. And then once you get in that headspace of, yeah, I can do this, it just keeps dominoing and you just want bigger.
I love it.
Yeah.
I would really like to ask a couple of questions around the whole structure of the board, because I know it was really a big thing for you when you first came in. So I probably want to talk about a couple of different arms in that. One, what's it like being in the board, but also I want to talk about it must have been, and I'm sure we've had conversations around this. I know it was nerve-wracking for you to join the board, but doing it yourself without Brendon there with you week on week, I think it's a bit of a common misconception that you need both of you in the room for the change to happen. And yep, ideally that would be fantastic, but it's not always possible. So I'd really love to hear your experience around the thoughts in the beginning of you actually doing it on your own and whether that meant that you could impact the change, and then understanding what's it like being part of a group.
Okay. So back at the start, as you know, I was so nervous about starting. Like I, again, set myself goals this year to step outside my comfort zone and do things that scare me. So then when I had that conversation with you about joining the board, I didn't want to do it. And then I'm like, no, stop, just do it, jump in. What's the worst that can happen? And I knew that Brendon wouldn't do it. It's, you know, not that he doesn't want to improve, like, because he does. It's just that it's not his thing. He's probably more nervous than me. But I did know that if I started to learn new things, that he would get on board with me. So I probably, it's sort of good because we have that relationship where we both know our strengths. So generally, you know, if somebody calls, you know, for something business related, he literally will just say, talk to the wife. And then, you know, with the mortgage stuff, like everything sort of, I'll get my head around stuff and then I'll pass that on to him and then we can sort of talk about it together. So I found that this has actually been good with me doing it because I've done the hard work, like, and learnt the stuff and then passing on to Brendon the bits that I know that he can change and he can do, so that I'm not overwhelming him in the meeting with too much. He's only getting the bits that he needs. So I did find at the beginning, I'm like, oh, will he change? Like, you know, I'm learning this and I'm like, you know what, just do it. He's either going to step up or he won't. And he did. And he totally stepped up and trusted everything that I told him. And I think, you know, that comes back to he trusted you guys as well. So he trusted that the information that I was getting was going to be right. And then once he saw the first few times that he trusted it and it worked, I think that trust was just unconditional now. It's just, oh, Waz and Nic said, okay, let's do it.
I wish I could do that in my own marriage or with my children. Mum said, yep, okay, we'll do it, no worries.
That's
yeah,
right.
if you ever find a way with the kids, let me know.
We'll start a new podcast and another group and everything.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm suitably qualified to give advice around that, though.
I am not, I can say with absolute surety. I'm keen. So for a lot of people we talk to, and we've had some fantastic insights recently from one of our Tradiepreneur members who really had a lot of anxiety about joining us in coaching one-on-one. And then we do some group stuff within the one-on-one program as well. That was really challenging for him to, I guess, put his hand up and say, yeah, okay, I'm going to give this a go. I have heard the same sort of feedback from a lot of people prior to joining a board. They feel like it's going to be scary and challenging, and it gives them, uncomfortable feelings. Was it like that for you in the beginning? How has that changed? What does that look like for you now?
I was terrified at the start because I've been listening to the podcast for ages. I'd been in the trade desk for a long time. And to me, everybody that was on the podcast, there's been quite a few guests that you guys have worked with. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could get to their level one day. I really wish I could get to their level. And then I thought, I'm going to work with you guys. Again, that was one of my goals at the start of this year, was to do a bit of work with you guys. But I had to wait until I was good enough to get there, if you know what I mean. It's like cleaning the house before the cleaner comes.
I know.
I didn't feel like I was ready to work with you guys, that I was at the level needed. And so I just kept putting it off. But then once I did jump in, again, I was terrified that I was going to be joining a board with big business people. And I think it was Mitch Kelly in his podcast mentioned that his thoughts on business were, men in business suits, And then he's like, no, once you're in there, it's like, they're just other people.
Yeah.
They're not what you perceive in your head. And yeah, once I did join the board, you guys put me in an awesome board, and I was comfortable straight away and realized that they were all just like me. All of us are the same. Some of us may be better at some things than others, but we all are struggling. And if we're not struggling with that one thing at that time, we have struggled with it already. And that was massive, to realize that I wasn't alone. And I never believed I was lonely before. You talk a lot about, being lonely in business. And I'm like, no, I'm not lonely. It wasn't until I joined that board where I went, oh, yeah, maybe I was, but I couldn't articulate that. But yeah, realizing that I was just like everybody else on that board was really good.
Yeah, I really, one of my most favorite things actually about boards are the way everybody's really scared in the beginning, and by the end of the first month they're starting to establish small connections with the other board members, and within 3 months I can't shut everybody up because they're too busy catching up about what they did on the weekend and where the kids are at, and then we finally get on to business. It's incredible to see what that power of connection can do within the group in terms of being able to share some of those terrifying things. We uncover some pretty big stuff in our meetings, and having the confidence in your board members to know they're also there to support you. It's not just about what Warwick and I can bring, it's about what you all bring to one another. Is amazing to watch from our point of view, from our perspective, to see how you all grow together and then establish these fantastic relationships. So you've now moved on to a different board, but you still have a very close relationship with those original board members, which extends throughout everything that we do. You guys are still in regular contact. You're still supporting one another. You're very much a leader. I know that you don't feel that way in yourself yet.
Definitely not.
You're very much a leader in what we do in our programs, and a lot of people are looking to you for your support, guidance, and friendship. And the change for me in you this year has been absolutely mind-blowing. You've reduced me to tears several times because I'm so damn proud, both of you and Brendon. But you've worked really hard to lead Brendon through the changes he has to make. And what you don't see now is that you are that leader within the group, and there are many people looking to you for what you've done, where you've come from, and to learn how they can do that in their own businesses. So for me, that's very much my favourite part of the groups. Would you agree, Warwick? Do you enjoy that part as well?
Oh, absolutely. It's the way, it's like seeing opposing sporting teams actually do those things on the field where, they'll, I don't know, help a competitor. And it's almost like, it seems like, hang on, what? They're supposed to be competitors. And I think business has this adversarial nature to it. So to see business people actually openly giving and sharing and encouraging beyond just the structured work that we do in the actual board sessions or in our coaching sessions, I think it almost restores my faith in humanity. But I think it shows the true nature of small business owners. And, you know, I saw some stats recently that small business or small to medium enterprises, it's usually defined SMEs, employ something like 90% of Australians, despite the fact that we all think of employees being employed by the big corporates. Most employees work for Brendon and Amii Jones. You know, they work for family businesses, smaller businesses. So it's really cool to see that banding together almost. And I don't think you can put a price on that. You know, it brings a whole lot more stuff to the table than just working on your marketing plan or your sales process.
Totally. And that's something that I didn't think that I would get out of this was, you know, I was signing up to business coaching with business coaches. I didn't sort
Sounds
of think
boring.
about I didn't think about like how much value I was going to get from the other guys. Like, and yet I have formed relationships specifically with the girls in the first board that I was in, and you know, we now chat privately as well, and you know, about personal stuff, we chat about business stuff. Then when I was put into the other board, again, I went straight back to shitting myself because I was terrified. Who was I getting put with? But again, I don't know what I was worried about. Everybody got along. I loved that you were talking about something, and then one of the other guys will have a turn, and then they're like, "Oh wow, I didn't know I needed to know that."
Yeah.
So you end up like with a big list because something that somebody else is doing is relevant, but you would never have asked that question in the first place. But now you have the information, and I found that with both boards is that you got something out of everybody. We're all working at different places, and our businesses are all really different, but you got something out of every session from everybody. Like, you know, it wasn't just you guys teaching, you know, we were all teaching each other, and I loved that.
Amii, I want to just go back, as I do in these episodes, to something you said earlier about getting ready for working with us. You know, you had to go and do all this work to get ready to work with us, which is a pretty common scenario. And I've done some like fitness training and coaching over the years as well, out of personal interest. And it just blows my mind the number of people that won't join a gym until they're fit enough to go to the gym. I'm like, but that's why you join, is to get fit. And they're like, yeah, no, there's no way I could come yet. I got to go home and do some stuff so I can get fit enough to come and get fit. And it's the same with this, with working with a business mentor or coach and joining these programs. It just fascinates me, that whole concept of getting ready. What the question I want to ask is around, what are some of the markers of being ready to be coached or being ready to work on your business? I mean, what sort of things or what sort of areas did you feel like weren't up to scratch?
I don't know. I just didn't feel like I was ready to play the big game yet. Like you get this vision in your head of what a business owner is, and it doesn't feel like me. It's, you know, the man in the suit. It's not me, and I didn't feel like I don't know what's good enough. But yeah, I felt way out of my depth, and that I needed to up my game before I came in. And I don't know, I think it's that being vulnerable. Nobody likes to be vulnerable and be the new person and be the learner. Like, you know, it's because everybody's looking at you. Everybody. I think, you know, the more into social media and stuff people get, I think nobody gives a shit about anybody these days. Nobody notices anybody but themselves anyway these days.
It's a good point.
So like it was Nick who just pushed me over that, just do it. And and then you get in there and you went, oh, all these people are learning the same things. It's just that we don't, I think it goes back to that vulnerability. Nobody will admit that they're not good at things or that they don't know everything. We put on this front that everything's great when it's not. We're all learning. And, we've worked with some businesses that have been in business for a long time that are still learning. And I'm like, oh, so you're just as scared as I am.
Yeah.
And I just don't think we see that. I think because we all just see the front that everybody puts on, that we think that we have to be that level, when in actual fact, it's just a front from everybody.
Yeah, totally is.
Do you think that's one of the issues with tradie men, with trade business owners, where the guy is the front man? Do you think it's that need to be seen to have everything sorted? Otherwise, I don't know, some negative connotation comes from that. I know I'm asking a leading question there, Amii, but what are your thoughts on that?
I think so. I think it's just a man thing in general, is that, society has built men to believe that they have to provide, and they have to be the alpha, and, if they don't, that you're a failure, which is garbage, because I don't personally know anybody who believes it. But society has made it, the same as women. Women are meant to, fill a certain role. And again, don't know anybody that believes it. It's just in our heads. It's stories that we've been told over the years. But yeah, I do. I think they need to, to have that perception of they're doing well. And again, because nobody talks about their failures. So, we're all sort of living to everybody else's highlight reel, which is, I think, the problem.
And it's a heck of a shame, because if we heard more of the skinned knees and the bruised elbows in life from other people, where they've fallen down and stuffed things up, I think a lot of us would probably avoid some of it ourselves, and we'd all get a hell of a lot stronger and more resilient collectively, because we'd sort of share in that group experience and group suffering almost, which is where a lot of us can draw a lot of strength from. So it's kind of sad that we don't talk about that stuff more.
It is.
I don't think any of us do. That upsets the apple cart. We can't not be strong and achieving and doing amazing things in life if we're also vulnerable.
Just like a loss of balance. So, Amii, you guys have learned a lot. You've changed a lot. You've put a lot of cool stuff in place in the business and even personal life. You bought your first house as self-employed business owners. How long have you had the business for now?
9 years.
9 years. So I want you to go back in time 9 years.
Yeah.
And say hello to Amii 9 years ago, about to embark on this journey. If you could go back and give yourself some tips or advice at the start of this journey, what sort of things would you, impart upon Amii 9 years ago?
The first thing I think would be to think bigger, live bigger, be bigger. Don't worry about failing. I always wanted to be comfortable, because it's easier sitting in comfort. And I'm finding out this year that it's so much better not being comfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning, and I'm definitely still growing with that one. But it would be to ask for help back then, to admit that I knew that I didn't know anything, but to actually find the help and not be worried about looking like, we were out of our depth. Because if we'd have gotten this help 9 years ago, I can't imagine where we would be now. So yeah, definitely ask for help. There's always somebody that will help. It's just that people don't like to offer it unless they've been asked. And I've found, especially in the drawing board, everybody wants to help you.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's asking for help is just like giving everyone else permission to share.
Yes.
It's not actually saying that, oh, I'm broken and shit house and, can you fix it for me? It actually just, I feel, gives other people permission to share their own lessons. Yes. And then we can all learn from that. So it's fantastic insight, Amii. Thank you. And here you were worried about today's episode.
I know.
And you're crushing it like everything else that you're working on. So
yeah, no, I'm still nervous as hell.
That's okay. What happens when you get out of your own way, though, Amii?
Good stuff happens.
How's that book coming along, Coxie?
Amii and Brendon get a whole chapter.
Yay!
Well, Amii, I'm just really happy for you guys, and you know, I shouldn't do the favorites thing, but I love hearing your story shares in the groups, and I love seeing your comments online. It's like, to me, you epitomise someone who's really faced up to your fears. I mean, you've said about being nervous today, and you're still doing the episode, so props to you on that one. But you really do, I think, represent a lot of people and a lot of women out there who have that self-doubt, who aren't sure if they're fit enough, ready to do business enough, worthy of the business manager title or whatever the heck it is. I think you really do represent for a lot of women and a lot of people in business out there that, as you said, if you just embrace the fear, good stuff happens when you get out of your own way in that regard. So I'd have to say you're one of my favorite clients.
Thank you. I'm gonna. That's yeah. I've
put
got
that on
that
your website.
Recording of that. I will. I'm gonna put that. Definitely put it up on the website.
Yeah.
And now you can snip it and share it to the rest of your board members. Look, see, I told you.
I'm going to do that.
You're now better than everybody else. But thanks so much for coming on the show today. I know we maybe, shoehorned you in and took you outside your comfort zone again. But thank you so much for sharing, Amii. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for forcing me into it, because I never would have done it otherwise.
I'm so pleased that you came today. You gave so much information, as usual, as is your generous spirit. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Amii.
You've been listening to the Tradies in Business podcast with Warwick Bidwell and Nicole Cox. Find out more about today's guest, tools for your trade business, and other cool stuff at tradiesinbusiness.com.au.